Welcome back to our second half. Our next presenter is Rodney Adams. Now, Rodney is an adjunct lecturer in Auslan and Deaf Studies at the University of Newcastle and a research affiliate with the Centre for Disability Research and Policy at the University of Sydney. He's researching Indigenous sign languages and issues impacting deaf and hard of hearing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, such as health, education, and social and emotional well-being. Rodney will be presenting this evening in Auslan, and David will be taking the microphone to interpret. Now, before I hand over to Rodney, however, I'm just going to give you a little bit of information on how to applaud in sign. Has anyone done this before? Ah, fantastic, I can see a couple of people. I'll pop the mic down for one moment just to demonstrate.
I'm done.
Sorry, Rodney, you're not done quite yet. But I will be handing the microphone over now. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I didn't have the opportunity to read through everything, so I'm just going to have to put it all out for you. So good luck to me, I think. Okay, so we are here on the Gadigal people's land of the Eora Nation, and you know that the Gadi is actually a tree, a plant. So when you think about that, there's a dual name there. So there's Sydney and Aboriginal peoples. So when we talk about trees, so this is a sign that you could use. So Gadi is another name that can be used. Now, moving on to this slide, my wife, who's also deaf, went over to Germany, and in a German cafe, she wanted to order a cup of tea and trying to communicate that back and forth, and she wanted milk in her tea, and that was quite a difficult communication breakdown, I guess, because one was both monolinguals, so a German-speaking person and an Auslan-using person, so she wanted tea with milk in it. So this is what she did. And the woman went straight out the back and grabbed her a big jug of milk. And here we have, over in America, we have the plain Indian Sign Language, and that was all the way from the Antarctic to Mexico to all over. And the PISL, which is Plain English Indian Sign Language, goes across 40 nations. This man is very inspirational because after the Bighorn battle, he told his story in Auslan, and he spoke about what happened through the battle and through how the American army was defeated, and he retells that story and uses 600 different dialects of the language in PISL, and he's not a deaf man, so it shows that his value of sign language. Here on the screen is Canadian. It's a advocate for the PISL and recognition for that in the Indigenous Sign Language. And here, why we should use Indigenous Sign Language, or why we should have it, is because the United Nations of Conventions of the Rights of People with Disability have this. And it's about education, it's about you having access to interpreters, qualified interpreters in the education space, and also Indigenous languages. Autism. This is quite powerful. 87% of information that's been, 87% of people have a very negative attitude towards or a bias view over a deaf person or a deaf or hard of hearing person. So you can see that has a significant impact on, the generalisation that deaf people can't actually achieve. And here we have autism up here, and that's when autism is I guess it's racism, ableism. It's sort of a double disability, if you will, a double disadvantage for us, in comparison to sort of racism as well. Here, the impacts for deaf and hard of hearing individuals is twofold in comparison to the the wider community. The cardiovascular illness, 7 times more prevalent in a deaf or hard of hearing person based on the stress. Hearing privilege is another term. So white privilege, it's very similar. Or Aboriginal and deaf have a double disadvantage. Double discrimination, double disadvantage. So when we think about languages, we often refer to it as a spoken language. You know, our brain doesn't discriminate, it's human. Language is language. You know, we have rhythm, we have phonology, we have morphology, we have all of that, and all languages have that all throughout. So it's not only about spoken language. So we have Auslan in Australia, what, maybe 130 years old? So maybe 200 years old max. Whereas we have other languages, the indigenous sign languages, which stem even further. So, you know, Auslan is still relatively new in comparison to indigenous sign language, and I think that's something that we need to change, especially for the future of deaf indigenous folk. And you can see here the value of language, the value of sign language. The Australian government spends so much money, you know, putting money into a range of other languages, but not so much into indigenous languages. And we have Jacqueline Troy here, who launched the Gadigal book a few months ago, has made a quote and talks about the value of language and how that forms part of us and helps us become empowered and develop our own identity, and how we can use it as an advocate, and, you know, not to just stay back but to actually take action. Technology, hearing aids, cochlear implants, yes, they've got their value, but they don't always work. They're not a 100% success. It's not a cure. There's quite a significant percentage where it's not always effective, you know. So, and also, it's just an addition. It's not a solution to that. We had a high school teacher come and sign it. Oh, I'm a high school teacher, and one of the parents came and had a chat with me, and I asked, how did you learn sign? And he said, because Emma Wiggle and his 2-year-old daughter watches the Wiggles, so she uses sign language, and he was able to pick up on language and therefore communicate with me. So that's an example of the value of language. And languages is not, it's not the same all over Australia. Auslan is the same. So dialects in Auslan also are prevalent, as is Indigenous language. So Indigenous languages, as we know, there's 400 plus. Here's some food for thought, some questions up here for you. And what are your basic assumptions, really, of sign language? Is it a valued language or not? I was planning to give you some time to read that. Anyway, here's the Curie Deaf Mob. And you can see, here I am. And the one word I want you to take away tonight is the Gadigal language is up here. He's testing the interpreter now. Did you, and that means thank you. Anyway, that's it.